You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marissa Lonick, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Join me each week as I dive into time management strategies, goal setting and achieving framework, and inspiring guests who are juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Dreams don't work unless you do, and just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't still make it happen, whatever it means to you. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another awesome episode of the Mama Work It podcast. If you're new around here, I'm Marissa Lonick, working mama for author, speaker, certified intuitive coach, and your host. Today's episode is going to be fun, you guys. We've got working dad Paul Fenner here to give us all the tips when it comes to financial planning, a topic that he is going to make fun and informative, I promise you. Paul is the president and founder of TAMMA Capital, a family office providing wealth planning, portfolio management, and tax services. He is a certified financial planner, enrolled agent, chartered financial consultant, chartered retirement plan specialist, and registered investment advisor. Paul is also the host of the Emotional Balance Sheet podcast, which I had the pleasure of being a guest on earlier this year. Paul has the unique blessing of being the father of triplets plus a younger daughter while having a beautiful and supportive wife. The first letter of each of their names results in TAMMA, the name of his company. Paul and his family live in Metro Detroit, Michigan, and I'm just super excited for this conversation. Paul, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Thanks for having me. And you know, it's funny on those bios where I say the kids are a blessing. That some days they are, and some days they're more of a challenge, like they were this morning, where I had to run a computer over to the middle school because one of my triplets forgot theirs. So
yes, you wrote the bio on a day they were a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I always love to just get to know our guests a little bit more in depth. So my first question is, just tell us a little bit more about you, your journey, your family life, all of it. Want to hear the story.
Yeah, well, with our case with Teresa, so I'll reference Teresa probably a lot during this conversation. So Teresa's my wife. She's amazing. She has her own stellar career as well in the marketing industry. But it really starts with our family and our triplets and plus one. That's the thing. When you say triplets, usually people stop, gasp, and then. But before I even have a chance, like, no, there's another one. So I always kind of feel bad for Mac because sometimes she may get left out, but she's definitely not left out of many conversations with our family. So my triplets are really unique. There's only about 5,000 sets of triplets born in the States every year. Most of them are all fraternal, so like boy, girl, boy, or whatever. And then the next batch is all identical. So all girls are all boys. Well, there's only typically about 100 sets like ours where there's a girl, in our case, that's the oldest by 60 seconds. And Madison would remind you of that if she was having this conversation with you. And then we have identical twin boys. So it's really, really unique. And then Mackenzie, our plus one, is a girl. So it's the oddest way to have two boys and two girls. And honestly, like I wasn't planning on having 4 kids. Like I wanted one. Teresa and I almost got divorced. and then at the end of the day to have 4, it's like, wow. But like you said in the intro, like the name of my firm, TAMMA, is Teresa, Aiden, Madison, Mackenzie, and Andrew. So that's who I work with. I work with families that are trying to juggle multiple financial and lifestyle priorities. And, without this family structure, I don't know if I'd have the firm that I have today. And I may be still in corporate America grinding away, which was not a happy trail for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it definitely wouldn't be named TAMMA if you did have the firm.
Oh, and so let me quick story on that. The original name of my firm was DreamWorks Capital Management. And the career coach that I was started working with, the first time I met her, I wasn't even officially working with her yet. Camille Jane, who is a vital part of our family now, Aunt CJ, as we like to call her, said, it's like, that is a horrible name, and I will not work with you until you change it. I'm like, great. This is a great opening meeting. Like, I haven't signed on to work with you yet. And I ultimately did. And we had Mac about a year later. And Camille is the one that came up with the name. She is the creative genius behind TAMMA Capital. So
I love that. I love that. And it just goes to show you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. So that was like your discovery call with her. And you were
that's
meant
right.
to work with her no matter what she said.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. But again, going back is like Teresa and I were like the prototypical couple that, once we finally decided that we're going to stay married and have kids, like, great, well, we're just going to have a family, one, maybe two. And then we found out, no, you guys can't have kids. And so we started down the fertility treatments, and this didn't work and this didn't work, and then we got to the last straw, and then it worked so well that we got 3 at once. And then I thought we were done. Like, I listened to these doctors and I knew the numbers. I was a numbers guy myself, and like, okay, the chances of us having another baby, naturally, no less, were like basically slim to none, like 99.8%, something like that. And then here came Mac like 2 years later.
Well, there's got to be that 0.02% somewhere, and you're it.
Yeah, and the thing is, you hear, we've talked to other families that have multiples, and they said the same thing. Like, you hear stories about this happening to other people that can't have kids, adopt, 3 months later, they're pregnant. You
Right.
hear stories, but you just don't think that's going to happen to you.
Sure.
And then it happens to you, and then it's like your whole life is kind of flipped upside down. But
Yeah.
it's a journey. And the thing with Teresa and I, we kind of had this mantra, I guess, at the beginning, where we just try to take one day at a time. Just take one day at a time. And one day at a time is turned into almost 13 years now. And the truest truism of parenting I've ever heard, somebody told me this very early on with the triplets, was that he said the words, "Be careful, because the days are long and the years are short."
Yes.
And that resonated and resonates every day, where as my kids get older and they get closer to starting their own lives in college and all that, and working with so many families at TAMMA that are going through that. This year I have a lot of families going through the empty nest stage, where they have kids leaving for college for the first time, and it is a very difficult transition.
I bet. Yeah, I've been hearing stories about that recently. I don't know if you're a fan of Kelly Ripa, but I recently read her book, and she has an entire chapter dedicated to each of her children going off to college. And I ugly cried my way through that chapter. Like, I'm nowhere near it, but I'm dreading the moment. It's bittersweet. You want to see them go and grow, and then I don't know, it's just so terrifying.
Yeah, ironically, it's funny that you mentioned Kelly Ripa, because I think either one or two of her kids actually go to the University of Michigan here in Ann Arbor, where I'm based in Metro Detroit, but Ann Arbor is like 45 minutes away. So
one kid, yep, I remember.
Yeah, because she's got 3, right? She's got 3.
She's got 3, yes.
And you've got 4,
and I've
right?
got 4, and I've got identical boys, just like you.
Yeah.
So we have a lot in common. But we don't have the financial planning background in common. So this term can be very scary to some people. I feel like just they hear it, they cringe, they feel like they don't know enough about it, and it's intimidating. So I feel like you can make this feel more fun, feel less intimidating, feel easier to kind of digest. So tell us, what is, in your own words, like comprehensive financial planning? And how can we stop hiding under the covers if we are frightened by this world?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there. I mean, when it's not lost on me when somebody picks up the phone or schedules a time to talk to me for the first time, that there's a lot of trepidation and they're scared, because here you are, even if somebody was referred to me by an existing TAMMA family client, they still don't know me. They're going on the faith and trust of somebody that recommended me, which is to me the highest honor that anybody ever gives me. Is there's still that apprehension that I'm going to walk into this meeting, and most people already have this stereotype of what they think or who they think an advisor is. And what I try to do as quickly as possible is just to take the temperature of the room down, to let them
Mm.
know this is okay. It's a conversation. I'm not going to try to sell them something. I'm not going to try to take their money, twist their arm, or anything like that. And my industry gets a really bad rap because usually people show up in mainstream media like a Ponzi scheme, like a Bernie Madoff, and it gets a
Mm-hmm.
lot of attention. And so the good advisors, and hopefully I consider myself a part of that, good advisors in our industry have to deal with that and fight that every day. But it's having a welcoming conversation with people, explaining exactly who I am and what I do, and it, for me, again, it goes back and starts with the family, the whole family. Like, my firm is named after my family. I have no interest in putting my family's name or my livelihood at jeopardy for telling somebody at a backyard barbecue that, oh, did you know so and so is like up to their eyeballs in debt, or so and so just lost their job. It's not. There's a fiduciary responsibility that I have as being a certified financial planner that um, I hold in very high regard. And most people don't know that anybody can call themselves a financial planner for the most part, but they don't
Mm.
have to have all those designations that you listed off that I have, and a lot of my colleagues do. And so I think that's one of the important pieces, that when somebody's looking for an advisor, to do some due diligence, homework, see what kind of credentials they have, and do a Google search and see what comes up.
Yeah. I like that you said that, that the name of your organization really ties into the values you have within the organization. And of course, it's a business. You're there to make money. I mean, we all have to work to survive and support ourselves and support our families, but you're leading sort of with a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think, again, I think the stereotype that people put on advisors is that, oh, that's the person that manages my assets, the pick stocks or bonds or portfolios. And that's what I usually call the sexy part of what I do. And that's what most mainstream media puts out there about advisors. But really, what's at the heart of what I do is the planning piece, and really the relationship that I build with people. And for some, that makes me a great fit with people. For others, it doesn't. So, for example, like, I'm very transparent when I first meet with people that me being a part of your family and you being a part of mine is not lip service. You literally become part of my TAMMA family, and I'm going to get to know things about you that you would probably never tell anybody else. And again, that gets back to being really transparent and having people feel comfortable and trusting that I'm going to keep their information private. And so, having deep conversations like that, people don't think of often when they think of a financial advisor. But one of the first things that I lead with is not numbers, it's trying to figure out what's your family's purpose. And then
Mm-hmm.
from there, how do we build objectives off of that? And then what are the action items that we have to take that support that objective, that supports your purpose? And as I just explained that, I didn't say anything about numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely an emotional side of financial planning and a financial side of financial planning, and I try to mend the two in a more seamless, stress-free approach.
Yeah. So let's talk about that purpose for a minute, because I'm sure people come to you and they don't necessarily have that clarity.
Most people don't.
How do you get that clarity in a family?
The way I explain this, and full disclosure, Teresa and I are no different than the families I work with, and most families. We struggle with the same things. And I think that's what creates a level of empathy between myself and anybody I may be, speaking to. And it's this amazing gift. And it's the hardest gift to give and the hardest gift to receive, which is time.
Mm.
Spending time with your spouse, significant other, partner, having conversations about what it is that's really important to us. And why is this so hard? Because I'm being pulled to go take a computer to middle school. Taking kids to swim practice or dance practice or football practice. And we're all getting pulled in a lot of different areas. But when do we ever make time with our, again, partner, spouse, significant other, to have a really deep conversation about this? And the other thing that makes that scary is that for a lot of families, for a lot of couples, they've never had that conversation. So they don't necessarily know, even if you're married to somebody, what they might be thinking, what they might want. And
Mm-hmm.
well, does that really align to what I want and where I want to go? And I think that's another area where I play this role as a independent third party arbitrator and to some degree counselor between spouses and partners on navigating that roadmap. Because like you said, most people that I meet with don't have any idea of what their purpose is, let alone objectives. And but without that, you can't build a financial roadmap. You can't build a financial plan without knowing those critical things. And so that's why I always start there. And the example I always give is Teresa and I like to go to Traverse City, and we go there multiple times a year. And she has her favorite winery, and she books the appointment to the tasting room and all that. And I don't even drink wine, but she knows I'm bringing that 1-page financial plan that we need to cover, and we do it in a environment that's easy for her. Usually after that first half a glass of wine, the answers get a little
Even
bit better.
easier.
Yeah, but it's finding something like that. It's finding some kind of routine. Going, on Thursday night, we're going to go to the local, in Michigan, Coney places are pretty popular. So it's like going to the local Coney restaurant to have a conversation about where we're at, just doing a check-in. But again, it's hard because, you're getting pulled in multiple directions with, especially now that school started and activities are back up. But I don't know of a way around not spending that time together and having actual conversations on that. So when people come to me for the first time, I really emphasize, this is the homework that you need to do. I know you want to maybe focus on your portfolio or other things, but that's really not what's important. This figuring out your purpose and developing questions around that's really what's most important.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there?
Exactly.
Right. So you got to have an end destination first and then kind of work backwards to create the plan. It's like with any goal.
Yeah. So like, and when I'm like literally talking about this financial plan, it's literally 1 page. And on the left-hand side of it, I call it the emotional side. On the right-hand side, it's the financial side. So there's purpose, objective, and action items. And then on the right-hand side, it's your financial scorecard, it's your net worth, it's your asset allocation. And so for me, I always start trying to make the connections between your purpose and objectives with your financial scorecard. So if helping your kids through college is a purpose for you and your objective is supposed to be setting up a 529 plan and putting $200 in it every month, are you doing that? Is it aligning to, to your financial scorecard? And if it's not, then then is that really your purpose? Is that really your objective? Because
Mm-hmm.
you can't say that it is and then not follow up and do it. And I think that's where, like in industry terms, they call it behavioral coaching, but it's really just trying to mind any gaps that are created between what you say you want to do and what you actually do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So much good stuff coming out of this conversation. I knew you were going to make it fun and informative.
I don't know how
So,
much fun I'm making it, but hopefully it's informative.
well,
Probably the
I
most
don't
fun part
know.
is that wine drinking.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, I geek out on stuff like goal setting and like planning and time management. You know that about me. So, like, the idea of going on a date and talking about future goals is like heavenly for me. Maybe it's not for all partners, but I like the fact that you said like maybe that's not your wife's most exciting thing to do, but she goes to an environment that's exciting for her, that's welcoming for her, where it's like something she enjoys going to, right? Drinking the wine that she loves. And then it makes it that much more enjoyable. And of course she's with you, her partner. So there's that. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think sometimes Teresa, and she tells most people this, like sometimes I have a love-hate relationship about being married to a financial advisor, wealth planner.
Yeah. Well, we all have those moments. So I'm super curious because we don't get a ton of dads on the show here, Paul.
Yeah,
So
and I'm like
this
really
is,
excited to be like one of the few dads that you've had on the show. So I feel
yes, yes.
incredibly humble.
So I'm curious, how do you personally, I mean, 4 kids, triplets, how do you find harmony between running TAMMA, being a present spouse, demanding career, raising the kids, like all the moving parts? What are some tips you have?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is emphasize the word harmony and not balance. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been working on that for the last several years because I used to always say balance, find balance. And what I've learned through just living life with the lifestyle that I have with a firm and Teresa's career and the kids and research and reading that I do a lot of that, is that there is no such thing as balance. And there isn't, and that is the case because at times your career or business, whatever you do for a living, is going to take priority. You're going to need to spend more time with that, which means less time with spouse or family. Then there's going to be times when your spouse or partner really needs you more than your career, and likewise your kids. So I think that's one of the things that I consistently try to get my arms wrapped around, and having conversations, letting people know that, hey, don't beat yourself up too much about this, because we're all trying to find the right harmony, and that harmony is always going to be an uneven flow. And we have to be accepting of the fact that, when our family needs us, we need to be there. When our work needs us, we need to be with it. So I think from my standpoint, how we do that is, again, I'm just going to point out, Teresa and I struggle with it just like everybody else. I don't have like the magic answers, but it gets back to, I think, having open lines of communication and trying to stick with those date nights, whenever they may be, whether it's once a week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. One thing that I do with my kids is that we have a family meeting pretty much every Sunday. And in that meeting, we're outlining, okay, who's doing what chore. So they each get to pick a chore. We're going through they each have their own financial accounts. And we have an app called FamZoo that does that, where their allowance gets put into. So we're reviewing like their account balances. And we're talking about the week ahead, who's got what activities. We're looking at their planners for school. A few of them do really well at that. A couple don't. So there's usually some screaming and yelling around that. But I try to use that time as a point to like level set and set expectations for what this week may be like. And especially with Teresa's career, she can travel quite extensively during time. So she could be gone a couple times a month, once a month, or she could be home the entire month. So especially on those weeks that she's going to be out of town, I think it's really even more critical that not only she and I are on the same page, but the kids and I are on the same page as well. Even though I get really frustrated because we'll cover it in the meeting and then I'll end up repeating myself 5, 6, 7, 10 times during the week.
Yes, Paul, I can empathize with that. Yeah, that's such a great idea. And I love the app idea there too. That's super smart. What age did you start running these meetings with the kids? I'm curious because right now they're 13 and 11. Is that
Yeah,
true?
so the triplets will be
Okay.
13 in December. Mac will be 11 in a couple 3 weeks. We started this, I think, about 2 years ago. So it's been fairly recent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, let me put it this way. It's not perfect, but it's better than what it was before when we had nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Is my angle on it. Are there things that we could improve on? Yeah. Like the finance app. Like I used to have, what the kids know this, and it was a book that was written called The First National Bank of Dad. So rather than using like a digital app, like it was like cash, like every Sunday night we were doling out allowances, and then I was taking money back for things that they wanted that I paid for, that came out of their bank account with me. And as I started thinking about this and having conversations with other people and seeing where the world's going, it's all going digital. So why not teach my kids about this now, so where
Mm-hmm.
they know that they can look into their FAMZoo app and see, okay, this is how much I have in my spending account. This is how much I have in my savings account. And this is how much I have in my philanthropy account. So it's this jar, if you will. And
Mm-hmm.
Ron Lieber, who's a columnist at the New York Times, wrote a book on this topic, The Opposite of Spoiled. And that's where I kind of got that idea from, as far as having these 3 different buckets: a spending bucket, a savings bucket, and a philanthropy bucket.
Yeah. Super smart. Sounds like a good read.
It is. And so at the end of the year, like the kids get to pick whatever charity they want their money to go to. But every week a certain portion of their allowance goes into spending, saving, and philanthropy.
Yeah, that's great. Such good habits you're instilling in them. Awesome. Well,
Well,
good.
I hope so, but we'll see. It's still, like anything, it's always a work in progress.
It always is, but I mean, it sounds like it's doing great things for their development, and they're eventually entering into adulthood and having this background. So,
Because I think you made a good point there, Marissa, because that's what Teresa and I are trying to do. I see enough of people that come to me that kind of have that deer in the headlight look, like we have no idea what to do. Please help us. Like
mhm,
I want to try to prepare my kids as best as possible, that when they go off to college, they start their careers, they're not totally blindsided by the idea of financial planning and all the things that encompasses. I know we haven't talked about this yet, but when I say financial planning, comprehensive financial planning, there's a lot that goes into it other than portfolio management. To me, that's
mhm.
something completely separate.
Yeah. Okay, well, I know we could talk about this all day, Paul, but we are going to move on to our lightning round. We are going to move into our just for fun random questions. We're going to get to know you even better. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Tell us, if you could go on vacation anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would it be and why?
Ireland.
Oh, I love, love how quick you knew that. Okay, tell us
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. Ireland. My family's Irish Catholic, huge Notre Dame fan, and it's a place that I've always wanted to go to. And so that would be it.
Okay. Have you been before?
No, I've not. I've not.
Okay.
I really wanted to go this year because Notre Dame was playing Navy in Ireland, but we didn't go. So,
Yeah. Well,
but it's
you'll
definitely
make it.
on the quote unquote bucket list.
You will make it happen with your amazing financial planning skills, I'm sure.
That's the weird thing about sometimes financial planning. You can afford to do things, but then it becomes then you're faced with a time constraint, because then it's like, okay, well, you can afford to go, but then when can you actually go? Especially in like situations like ours where we have so many kids.
Yes.
There's hardly a time to be able to go, and then as they get older, they stop wanting to do things with us, which makes it even more challenging.
Well, I'm sure if you dangled an Ireland trip, they'd still want to go, right?
I'd have 2 takers for sure.
Okay.
And 2 that would be on the fence.
All right.
I won't name names in case they listen to this.
Don't name names. All right. What if they made a movie about your life? Who would you want to play you?
Oh, now I'm blanking on his name. Well, I guess Ryan Gosling. That would be a good one.
Good choice. Yeah.
He's a good-looking guy.
Yeah. Good choice. All right. What's something most people don't know about you?
That I spent a lot of my youth growing up on farms.
Oh, okay.
Multiple sides of my family had farms, so most people don't know that.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. Finally, important question. What's your guilty pleasure TV show?
Love Ted Lasso. I've watched the entire season twice now. I think I've watched the final episode probably 4 times. And every time my therapist tells me to find something to do, I always go back to Ted Lasso. The messaging behind it is phenomenal. I love Jason Sudeikis is just, phenomenal. It was sad that it stopped, but 3 great seasons. And my kids even know that. They're like, if they see me watching Ted Lasso, they're like, "Oh, Dad must be stressed. He must need a break."
That's your go-to stress relief. All right. All right, Paul. Well, before we officially end our episode, please tell our listeners where they can find you.
The best place to find us is at tammacapital.com, and that's TAMMA. On the site, there'll be a list to our blog that you can find all the articles I've written. There'll be a link there for the Emotional Balance Sheet podcast, which you have been on. Highly recommend listening to our conversation about time management and parenting. And that's really the focus of my show is transitions. And I was just interviewing a gentleman by the name of Bruce Feiler, who literally wrote the book Life in Transition, and he's coming out with a new book called The Search. So just had a fantastic conversation with him that'll be released in November. But that's really the centerpiece of communicating is the podcast and focusing on life transitions, especially for parents.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
And then we're on all the social stuff, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a guest, for talking to us all about financial planning, family life, dad life. We so appreciate it.
Thanks, Marissa, for having me on. It was a pleasure.
You've been listening to the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love if you could take a quick minute to leave me a review on whichever platform you're listening from, and maybe even send a note to a fellow mama friend recommending it. Reviews and recs help this podcast grow and reach more like-minded, awesome moms. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button so we can stay in touch, girl. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Mama Work It website, please do. There are lots of free resources and great articles there that can help you with the juggle of work life, mom life, wife life, fill in the blank life. So head on over. Thanks again for being part of the tribe. I'll see you soon, but in the meantime, keep on working it, mama.